Okay, 3, 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Sports, Shorts, and More. I'm Bill. This is Chris.
Hey, everyone.
Yep, and we are going to be with you for the next 30 or 45 minutes.
And we've got a great topic for today. We're going to talk about personal responsibility and accountability when it comes to athletes, but also how that ties back over to individuals that we work with and peers who are struggling to overcome some of the challenges of mental health issues. And when I think of personal responsibility, I think about myself and what are my things that I need to do. But when I think of accountability, I think about I have to be accountable to other folks. So when it comes to athletes, it's your coach and your team. But I think when it comes to someone who might be a peer, I think it's accountable to your treatment team and maybe some of the other providers and other folks in the community that you can be accountable to, who are maybe trying to help you overcome some of your struggles.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about personal responsibility and taking that on for ourselves so that we are basically the quarterbacks of our own team, right? We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So I think there's a great correlation here between the sports piece and what we do.
And I know for coaches, it's probably their number one challenge with athletes, which is athletes who are not responsible, athletes who do not take accountability. Maybe they're putting, it's kind of there's no I in team, and they're putting themselves before the team. Maybe they were breaking curfew, maybe they weren't showing up for voluntary practices, or maybe they weren't putting in the extra time in the weight room. Doing all those little things that, someone who's an athlete needs to do to be, at the top of their game, but to also help their team out to be the best that they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to take the opposite end of that for a minute. I want to talk about what it looks like to be an irresponsible athlete.
All right.
And we'll share some of those, and then we're going to circle it back there to see what, how can that tie back to the irresponsible behaviors of athletes, how that might tie back to things that, you, I, or anybody else in the community, things that we could maybe be doing differently to be more responsible. So when it comes to irresponsible athletes, one of the bullet points I've got down here is that they fail to recognize and follow through on their commitments and responsibilities. In addition to that, a lot of times too, they'll rely on others to motivate them, remind them, or even coddle them into performing or to showing up for practice or to being to places on time. Also, irresponsible would be playing that victim role. It's everybody else's fault, but your own.
Boy, that's I think we've all been through that piece, right?
I think we have as well.
I think the early part of recovery starts with blaming other people. I think that's pretty much the first step.
And then the other thing too is irresponsible athletes will offer poor excuses for why they didn't get the job done. So it's if they do take some accountability, it's almost inaccountability because they're making a poor excuse as to, well, I didn't go to my doctor's appointment because the bus was running late, or I didn't go because my alarm didn't go off, or whatever the excuse might be. Athletes do that as well, and it's usually a poor excuse for.
Right.
And having coached before, I hear all kinds of poor excuses for why an athlete didn't do something they were supposed to do.
So one that stands out.
Well, the one was my favorite was a young man who couldn't practice because he had just eaten a Big Mac fry and a Coke and a sundae, and showed up and just said, "Coach, it just hasn't digested yet."
Oh man!
So I was like, all right. I was like, well, if you can't practice, it's on you. But that's, you're hurting the team by not being able to practice.
But what sport was that?
That was basketball.
So, you don't want that all over the court.
No, you do not. Well, although I will share one little story though. There is the guy who at the practice showed up and was eating French fries with ketchup. He needed, we took a break. He had his food off to the side, and he went over and had French fries and was dipping them in ketchup. And little did I know the ketchup was all over his hands. So when he was dribbling and passing the basketball, ketchup was going all over the place. I'm looking at my hand, I'm like, am I bleeding? What is going on? And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, it's the ketchup fries. So I don't know who thought, eating French fries when it was on break was a good idea,
That's
especially for
classic.
basketball. But yeah, I've had some
That's a good one.
athletes that have done that. And then, one other irresponsible act of an athlete could be blaming the coach or their teammates for their own self-inflicted problems or issues or mistakes. A lot of times we think it just can't be my fault. I didn't catch that pass because the quarterback threw it 6 inches in the wrong direction, or we missed that play because I ran what I think was the right route, and the quarterback threw it, had the wrong idea for where I was going to go.
Somebody missed a block. Wasn't my fault.
Exactly. So, when it comes to being successful individually and as a team, there's a responsibility and accountability to yourself and to your teammates. And I think, in the peer environment, that comes into play a lot. I mean, you think about your treatment team, or if you think about appointments you missed, or, the medication that you may have missed, or a therapist appointment that you were late for, think about, I try to tell folks, think about what is it you could be doing differently to make sure those things don't happen again in the future.
Yeah, no more. I didn't have a bus pass, or I forgot if I took that already or not, or you know what, I was too tired to go this morning. We all have to learn to be accountable for ourselves.
And I'm with you. We're going to talk in a few minutes about ways to be more responsible and accountable, but we're going to share a couple of athlete stories.
Yeah.
I call Bill a genius because he came up with one that I could not come up with. But when you think about irresponsible athletes, this one goes back to being a Bengals fan.
Super Bowl 23.
Yep, back in, what was it, 1989.
Yep.
And Bengals against San Francisco 49ers. And the night before the big game,
Down in Miami.
Stanley Wilson has a cocaine relapse.
Yes, you did.
And I believe they found him in his room in the bathtub.
In his bathroom. Yeah. And he had told, the team was in the hotel, right? And they were supposed to be in their rooms for the night. And he told a couple players that he had left his playbook in the practice area and was going to get it. But he did not go get his playbook. He went and he got some cocaine and brought it back to his room. That's where they found him.
Found him disoriented, I believe.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of the Bengals players, felt like that was such a distraction that it did have an impact on the game and, how maybe their performance as well. Because he was a big part of what they did.
He was their best fullback. He was the third leading rusher on the year. And the first time I heard the story, Jim Breach actually told me the story. And it really affected everyone on the team. Immediately, as soon as they found Stanley, they took him off the roster, which was the only thing they could do. And then they had to inform the team what was going on. So the team found out at the same time. And imagine going into the Super Bowl that afternoon, or it was an evening game, and finding out that you lost one of your best players.
Yeah, that changes, think about game planning, it changes the game plan around, and you've got no time to rearrange what you're going to do.
It did, and Boomer Esiason was playing with an injured shoulder, his throwing shoulder in that game, and went, I think it was 11 for 24 or something like that for 150 yards. Didn't have a good game at all. They needed the running game.
But you mentioned Jim Breach. Was he going to be the MVP of the game?
He was going to be the MVP, yeah.
If the 49ers hadn't gone down and scored that touchdown?
Yep. The way the MVP is decided is the press gets to vote. So they pass around a form in the press box late in the game, and people write who they think is going to be MVP. So they pass around the paper in the press box. Jim Breach is the MVP of the game. San Francisco scores with 40 seconds to go to beat them.
Yep.
And
Joe Montana to John Taylor.
Yeah, and Joe Montana is the MVP.
There's a lot of hearts in Cincinnati after that.
Yeah, that was a really tough one. But Breach did that. We talked about his record in overtime. He was 9 for 9 in overtime. It's an NFL record still. He never missed a field goal in overtime.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
especially with all that pressure in games like that.
Especially with the size 5 shoe. I mean, that's not much.
He was a great kicker.
He was.
His time here in Cincinnati,
Yeah.
and even before that, he kicked with the Oakland Raiders before coming.
He did for 1 year. Yeah.
So very lucky to have him during that time.
And a great guy too, wonderful guy.
I came up with a couple other examples.
All right.
I was doing a little research and was trying to think of, all right, what's a more modern athlete who maybe has not been the most responsible and accountable? And I came up with Johnny Manziel after being drafted by the Cleveland Browns.
That's a great example.
I don't think Johnny lasted, maybe a year, 2 years at the most. 2 years. But during that time, just, I don't know if it was a lack of maturity or what it was, but just did not seem to make football the priority, did not make his teammates the priority, and was out of the league. And I think attempted to maybe try to get back in, but
played in Canada for a
couple
times. Yeah.
But NFL teams really never took a good hard look at him from what I could tell.
No, as far as wrecking the league goes, he didn't measure up to that one. Remember that on draft night?
Yep.
Let's wreck this league.
Yeah, I think I remember this.
Yeah, that one too. And we didn't know that wrecking the league would start with himself, but you got to start somewhere.
But that's, you think about, team players, that was, his behavior was.
Right, and think about how many people he had that he could have depended on to keep him accountable. I mean, hundreds, literally, of people that were invested in him.
To do his part.
Yeah.
And it just didn't pan out. Now, I came up with one other one, and I vaguely remember this. The World Cup soccer back in, I believe it was 2006. I'm going to throw a name at you. I'm going to mispronounce the name.
All right.
Zinedine Zidane. Or Zidane, I can't, it's quite the pronunciation. Soccer fans out there will know exactly who he is. But he was one of the greatest soccer players at that time, and one of the nicest soccer players at that time, except for a split second. And it's always amazing how one split second in life can change the outcome, unfortunately.
Very true.
And they were in a World Cup match, and someone on the opposing team was really, really heckling him, just in saying things that were just, unfortunately, awful things to be saying to another human being. And I guess this individual, I believe, insulted his sister and maybe his mother as well. And he took his head and headbutted the guy and was red carded, and they ended up, losing him for that game, and ended up losing that match. And even though he was taking a lot of abuse, he lost it in that split second, and it cost his team and his teammates because he was unable to be accountable to them for his actions.
That sounds a little Richard Shermanish to me. You know how he just gets under your skin and just won't let up.
But you can't retaliate because he's going to get the flag, not Richard Sherman.
Exactly.
But the person retaliating. So those are some athletes that we came up with, and I thought it was a great idea on your part to figure out who are some of these folks who may have been irresponsible.
Yeah, I like those.
But now I want to switch gears and talk about how to be more responsible.
All right.
Whether you're an athlete or whether you are just an individual in life, or whether you're a person who's struggling to overcome some challenges from a mental health issue. And one of the first things is to be able to recognize and own the power of your choices, your actions, and your decisions. And when you come to take ownership of all that, that's a big first step. And I think taking responsibility and accountability.
It is, and it's just very empowering when you take that step. And empowerment is something that a lot of people with mental illness deal with, because sometimes it seems that the system can kind of take away your power, right?
Yep.
Because you've got your team, you got a case manager, you have a psychiatrist, a counselor, maybe a job coach, and it's easy to let those people kind of take responsibility for your development. And when that switch flips and you realize that I'm the one that's in charge of my own life, it becomes empowering.
I know in our field of work, the two words that have stood out to me since day one of being in this job is hope is number one, and number two is empowerment. And those are probably the two biggest words, at least that I hear when it comes to someone's recovery.
I think that's great. I haven't heard that before, but I would agree with that completely.
Well, the other thing somebody can do is really to consciously and consistently make good choices and avoid hurtful choices. I know it sounds simple, but we're all guilty of making those bad choices. But if you can consciously really kind of, and I think it ties back to mindfulness, putting yourself into the moment, then, when situations arise, I think it helps you to make, a good choice as compared to a negative choice. I think in terms of athletes, the athlete who's doing the extra reps in the weight room, who's eating right, sleeping right, getting the proper rest, they're making all those good choices compared to the athlete who is maybe dogging it in practice, is maybe snacking on Skittles, although it works for Marshawn Lynch, and M&Ms, and not eating healthy, and staying up and playing games rather than getting the proper rest. Those things all come back at some point to bite that person, which then, they're hurting not only themselves, but then they're not being the best that they can be for the team, and they're not being accountable to the team for what they're doing.
The reason I like this number 2 is because it's got two sides to it. It says to consciously and consistently make good choices, but the flip side of that is you got to not make the bad choices.
That's right.
So it holds you accountable on both sides. I like
that. The third one is it's the keyword discipline. You gotta have discipline, and I think about in my own personal life. I try to be when it comes to work, I try to be very disciplined in the fact of Monday through Friday. I've kind of got my schedule laid out, but it all starts actually the night before going into work. So the night before going into work, it's I pack my lunch or get my snacks together. I get my clothes laid out so that I'm ready to go when I get up. I make sure that my alarm's set. When I get up, I've got my routine in the morning to make sure I get out and get to work. And then I've got in my planner everything laid out for the day. And then making sure that after work I'm doing something that helps me to de-stress, whether it's a walk, exercise, what have you. And then it's kind of like the washing machine. It's kind of rinse and recycle and do it again and until you get to the weekend. But it takes a discipline to do those things. It took me a long time to get to where I could be that disciplined, so that I think it allows me to be very consistent in what I hope is a good work performance.
You are very consistent. I think that's probably the top word used to describe you.
I can be consistently good, but I can also be consistently bad too.
Good. I like that you use the word schedule when we're talking about this one, because the quote actually is responsible athletes discipline themselves daily. And that's a big part of what we talk about at the Recovery Center is a daily schedule that you can stick to, because we need a routine. Routine makes us, it's comfortable, and we don't have to think about what the next step is because it's already all laid out. We spend a lot of time working on routines, and the past 2.5 months have been just disastrous for routines. Yes. We've all had to develop new ones, and so hopefully we've been successful at helping people do that.
We're trying.
We are trying.
Best, yes, and hopefully here soon we'll kind of get back to some more normalcy. I know we're taking some steps here actually at the center. We're going to start off with some outdoor classes.
And I'm excited about this. I'm very excited about this stuff. I'm excited to see members again, but I'm really excited about the outdoor piece. I think it's really cool.
I am too. So it should be fun. And lastly, one other thing that responsible athletes do is a lot of self-reflection. That you kind of have that open, honest dialogue with yourself about your strengths, your weaknesses, what's working, what's not working. If you're holding yourself in some unrealistic realm, you're not being honest with yourself. It's really having that very objective self-reflection that helps you to make the changes in your life.
We actually addressed that kind of tangentially twice a day when we do the morning meeting and the afternoon check-in, because it's about letting us know where you are at that moment in time and how things are going. And so you're examining yourself, but you're also sharing it with your peers, which leads to the accountability piece.
Right, I got a little cheat sheet here. I've got what the characteristics are of responsible people. I'll see if these characteristics can apply to you or I or those out there, and if they don't apply, then there's an opportunity to kind of think and reflect on what can I be doing differently. So one of the characteristics is recognizing personal errors and taking corrective steps to address them.
I'm good at the first part of that.
I am too. It's the correcting part.
Right.
It can be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's baby steps. You know,
Right.
If you're working towards it, that's a good thing.
That's very true.
Possessing self-respect. And I think a lot of us here through recovery, so we're very good at that. I think we have a lot of self-respect. Having sadness and remorse for difficult situations. So I equate that to empathy,
Mhm.
which in the peer support world is a key component of being able to help others. You've got to be able to have that empathy.
Empathy is what makes peer sport work, really. That's what holds everything together, because you can only have empathy if you've been in that situation.
It's the glue.
It is.
Engaging others to help understand and fix the problem. So I like the engaging part and the helping part, but we also got to remember too, it's not on us to fix somebody else's problem. It's up to them to ultimately be able to solve the problem for themselves.
We talk a lot about our roles, and one of the most important roles we have as peers is as a resource worker. It's like just when we were setting up for the show, I made the joke about teach a man to fish, right? And that's what the whole idea is by brokering resources. Instead of me telling you where to go and how to do it, I can help you find out for yourself.
Definitely, it's a huge part of what we try to do in helping others in their recovery.
Yeah.
And the last characteristic is just remaining open and receptive to new ideas and new ways of doing things, which isn't always easy to do. I'm old. I'm set in my ways, so it's a lot of times it's hard for me to kind of break my discipline pattern of my routine and my structure.
But you've embraced the last 3 months. I think you've been wonderful. We've changed a lot of things.
We have. It's been we flipped a lot of things upside down on how we do stuff here. So I've tried to be open to new ideas and the way we're doing things with some of the virtual work. But I look forward to getting back to some normal
right.
But still doing some of that virtual work, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, me too.
So with that said, that's what we wanted to kind of share on personal responsibility and accountability from the athlete side of things, but also from the peer side of things. But now I'm going to do what I do best, which is let's talk sports.
All right.
So some sports news that's out there. Let's see, a couple things. One is FC Cincinnati. I heard they had a fantastic soccer practice yesterday.
They held their first voluntary practice yesterday. Yep.
How many people showed up?
Let me think about that. None. No one showed up.
And why is that? What happened?
Well, there's two thoughts. Either it's voluntary and they don't want to bother with it, or I think it's a dispute about salaries. I think.
It's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Seems to be a problem in Major League Baseball.
They're taking a clue from baseball, yeah.
No good news to report yet. They're still all talking, and I guess now soccer's being bitten by the same bug when they can't seem to hammer out an agreement on things.
Yeah.
So I don't know when we're going to see sports. And I know people are probably tired of seeing us. They want to see some sports.
How can you talk about sports when there are no sports? It takes a lot of talent.
It does take a lot of talent. The other sports story I was going to share, a little sports news, was I was a baseball fan growing up, and I always liked to watch Lenny Dykstra play. And just hard-nosed, tough guy, left-handed hitter. Probably not the biggest of guys, in stature, but was really good, hard-nosed, tough baseball player. But after baseball got into some trouble, I believe he's currently in jail for some crimes that he committed. But he recently tried to sue a former teammate, Ron Darling, on the Mets. And apparently Ron had some not so nice things to say about Lenny, and Lenny decided to sue him for these comments. But the judge threw it out. And I love the judge's response. It was basically said, Lenny, you're, how do I put this? Your character couldn't get any lower at this point based on what somebody has said or some of the actions that he's committed. And I wish I could remember all these. I remember seeing a special on Lenny Dykstra years ago and some of the crimes that he had committed. And it broke my heart because I was just such a big fan. Really, it's one of those things where you see one of your, I don't know if I call them a role model at the time, but just somebody you really enjoyed watching, and then just really kind of let you down as to who they are as a person. So, one person on the field playing baseball, but another person off the field.
I got two things to remind me of. One's an anecdote. I think it was John Kruk, actually, who was a teammate of Lenny Dykstra's.
Yes.
John Kruk is at a bar after a game. He's smoking, and a lady came up and said, "You can't smoke, you're an athlete." And he said, "Lady, I'm not an athlete. I'm a baseball player."
I can so see him saying that.
Yeah, and you tore the scab off of my Lance Armstrong experience because did you watch any of this?
I have not
30 for
seen
30?
it yet.
It's really good, and he comes across as just a really arrogant guy. But I held out until he actually admitted that he had cheated, and I took down I have a framed Sports Illustrated cover with him on it doing the 7 because he won 7 Tour de France's, and then my sister sent me a birthday card that he signed, and so I put that in there, and now it's in the basement in a box.
He's a tough one for me because, just looking back on his career, I look back at what he accomplished, but then he cheated to accomplish it. But then I also looked at all the work he did for cancer research and all those things. I've always kind of struggled with how, my thoughts or feelings towards Lance Armstrong because there's so much good, but there's so much negative as well.
Yeah.
That it's hard. I know he's from Texas?
He's from Plano, Texas, where I grew up. So yeah.
I'm still. I have to watch the show because that maybe will help me kind of firm up what my true feelings are about Lance Armstrong.
My takeaway from the whole thing, the whole Live Strong and the foundation is somebody made the comment on the show. Unquestionably, cancer patients have a different experience now than they did 15 years ago or 20 years ago before Lance Armstrong. But I think that is a positive outcome that's going to continue and continue. But the rest of it is just
not good.
Kind of a despicable human being in a lot of ways.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, no, it's not.
The third sports story was a sad one. Was Pat Dye, who was the legendary coach of the Auburn Tigers, passed away, and I think you got a little Pat Dye background.
I do. I think of Pat Dye as the legendary coach of the TCU Horned Frogs. That's where he, I think, last coached, and it must have been 92, 93 when he came to Dallas or Fort Worth, and I was working at a radio station, and we picked up the Pat Dye show. So I used to produce that, and then we go to his office every week, and his office, it's really cool. It's a gigantic office, and it overlooked the stadium. So solid windows, on one wall, and we do the show, and you can look out on the entire TCU stadium, which is really cool. And he was a really nice guy. He won the Heisman Trophy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, sure did.
Well, he's coached some phenomenal players, especially you think back at Auburn, and
coached another Heisman Trophy.
And probably my favorite sports athlete of all time, Bo Jackson.
Really?
I just huge Bo Jackson fan.
For some reason, I thought you were a huge Earl Campbell fan.
I am Earl Campbell.
Okay.
Bo's more Earl. I was a little kid, and I think part of my fascination with Earl was they had the tearaway jerseys. So every time I saw Earl, he was 34. Usually I saw one of the two numbers because his jersey was tearing off.
I forgot about that.
But Bo Jackson, the runs that he had, and the fact that he played two sports, and I love the Nike commercials with Bo knows, and they have doing every sport that's out there, and with a BB King at the end. And Bo, you don't know Diddley?
Yep. I remember when I think about those, I think about Bo with he didn't have a shirt on, he had shoulder pads on, and he had a baseball bat.
Yes.
Remember that one?
Yep.
I like that.
And him as a Kansas City Royal, people forget what a great baseball player he was too. He's an all-star baseball player, all-star football player, and just really enjoyed watching him play sports.
But that got cut really short because it was hip, right?
Yeah, against the Cincinnati Bengals, unfortunately.
Did it?
It was just a hit in the hip in the wrong spot and just never fully recovered from it. and I think he continued to play baseball after the hip
Mhm.
injury. Um, Never quite being the same, level as what he was. He was still very good, but he went from being out of this universe to being more human-like after the injury.
I think every time I think of Bo Jackson, I think of Deion Sanders because they both played two sports, same sports, and I get confused as to which one of them went to a World Series and a Super Bowl. It was Deion
That'd be
who
Deion.
did that.
Yeah. And we have a little
We
Bo Jackson
do.
clip
We have
to
a clip.
play because I'd love to see some Bo Jackson.
Chris
highlights.
has not seen this yet.
If we can't have sports, we're gonna have some highlights of
Right.
of really good athletes. Okay, I'm looking forward to this because I have not seen this yet. And isn't there? I think you mentioned. Is there a Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders highlight in here, or Deion trying to tackle Bo? Maybe.
Oops. There is, and I can't get to it.
I will be curious to see that.
Please hold. There we go. Let's blow this up.
All right, here we go. My favorite athlete, Bo Jackson.
Oh, let's start it over. There we go.
Number 34 for the Auburn Tigers.
Here comes the stiff arm.
Is that Deion?
It's Deion.
Oh, poor Deion. I'm a big Deion fan too.
I am too. I like Deion a lot.
Tackling may not have been his more pass coverage than having to tackle somebody like Bo Jackson.
Dan Patrick interviewed Deion. There's a better picture of it. And Deion said he put his hand on my helmet like he was going to pray for me. And then he pushed me down.
Not that I wanted to give advice, but all I can tell Deion is go low. Don't go high at the shoulders. Go for the ankle.
Well, when Deion was a Cowboy, he used to get all kinds of grief for not tackling. That was a big.
I could live with that grief, given everything else he did from pass defense to playing some wide receiver to punt and kick returns. If his biggest weakness was not being able to tackle very well, I think I could live with that, given everything else he did.
It's pretty good.
Because he's a Hall of Famer.
Now that reminded me of a story that you have not told yet, but I really want you to.
Is that the when I met you?
No, I want you to tell the last man standing before Ken Griffey Jr.'s touchdown story.
Oh, that's this story finally has to come out.
Yeah, it's time.
All right, so
this is a great story.
This was Elder High School, 1985. The Elder Panthers playing the Moeller Crusaders, the Mighty Men of Moeller, and I was on the kickoff team for the Elder Panthers, and I believe it might have been the kickoff to start the second half. We only scored one touchdown. So there's only two kickoffs in that game. So on one of those two kickoffs, the ball went to Ken Griffey Jr. And Ken Griffey ran up the left-hand side at Elder's Fame Pit. And I was on the far side, so I had to cut across the field to try to get to Ken Griffey Jr. Angle and all that I had, still couldn't catch him. Dove. I can't remember if I dreamt this or not. I may have clipped his heel with my fingers. I can't remember for sure. But, I was the last man he beat for a touchdown that he scored. And I believe I read in a Sports Illustrated article that he talked about one of his, not one of his, but his greatest sports moment wasn't like a baseball moment, but it was scoring a touchdown against Elder at the pit. And Ken Griffey has me to thank for that because I just was – I probably was not practicing personal responsibility because I think before the game I had 2 beef and cheddars and some hash browns.
Oh my God.
So I was probably not running as fast as I should have been able to. If I'd been more personally responsible and accountable to my team, I had a much lesser food or better diet, pregame diet before the game. But yeah, that was my almost brush with greatness.
That's one of my favorite stories. For 2 reasons. One, because Ken Griffey Jr. said that's my favorite sports memory. And 2, because I would love to be in your brain and think, okay, I got the angle. How quickly did you realize that you did not have the angle?
I in my head, I said to myself in about 2 seconds, he runs like a gazelle. I was like, and I am not a cheetah. And I was like, I knew that the angle was over and done. And then when I saw the name on the back of the jersey, I knew I was in trouble too. I was like, all right, this is a Griffey. He's got to be fast.
He was a junior then, I think, right?
He was a junior, and he was a really good football player. I don't believe he played football his senior year because he focused on baseball. But he had we did get a revenge though, because he had a younger brother who was a running back at Moeller, and my younger brother's team a few years later was the first Elder team to beat Moeller in like forever. And I was at that game and got a chance to see us at least extract a little revenge, and it really elevated Elder football and kind of brought Moeller football down from, they were, kings of the totem pole, and kind of brought them down a couple of notches and started to level the playing field.
I loved him. I loved him when he was with Seattle. I got to interview him a few times when he came to town to play the Rangers, and he was just a really, really nice, soft-spoken guy. The one thing that bothers me about, it's not him, it's baseball writers. He should have gotten 100% of the vote for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, without a doubt.
He should have been the first one to do that. Mariano Rivera is the first one to do that. He got 100%, but King Griffey Jr. should have.
He should have, and he played in the era where everybody was juicing up on steroids, and he was not one of those individuals, and he was still hitting home runs left and right, and just had that sweet left-handed swing, and that's that. Call him a hometown kid. Someone from Cincinnati who achieved what he achieved was fantastic.
Did he and his dad go deep in the same inning? I know they did in the same game. I think it was the same inning. I think they were only father-son that hit home runs in the same inning.
I remember seeing. I can't remember if it was the same inning or
think
the
so.
same game. But yeah, that was a thrill to see that.
Yeah.
That's that. And if you're those two, that's what a moment.
That's
remember that for the rest of your life. Yeah. Well, you get the honor of the sports joke this week.
All right.
And I'm glad I don't have that challenge.
The way honor translates here is it's the albatross I'm going to wear around my neck until next week. So we just haven't been having luck with our jokes. What do Bill Buckner and Michael Jackson have in common?
Well, it's got to have something to do with the play at first base for Bill Buckner.
Most likely.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of Michael Jackson songs that could relate to it. Bad, Billie Jean. I can't think of a song. So what is it? I have no idea.
All right. What do Bill Buckner and Michael Jackson both have in common? They both wear one glove for no apparent reason.
That's just mean.
Yeah, it is mean. But we had 4 really bad jokes to follow. So
I'll make that 5.
All right. Fair enough.
Not just bad, but mean. Goodness. I'm glad. I was glad to see because Bill Buckner did finally win, I believe, the World Series.
Did he?
I believe so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We have to look that up. I don't want to misinform you, but I just remember feeling very good for Bill Buckner because something after that, and I believe he'd won after that. I don't know who or where or how, but I believe that he won it. We're going to have to look that up after the show and confirm. But,
that makes me think of Super Bowl 23 with the Cincinnati Bengals and San Francisco, and Montana threw, I can't remember who it was, an interception in the end zone the fourth quarter and was dropped.
Lewis Phillips.
It was Phillips? Okay.
Yeah, that might have sealed the game. But,
that was tough one.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the joke.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Now it's back on me next week. So I've got a little sports trivia.
All right.
And so it is, what sport is dubbed the king of sports? Is it soccer, baseball, or football?
And you wrote the question, and we both missed it.
We did. And so again, the question is, what sport is dubbed the king of sports? Feel free to, on the chat, I will respond to the answers and send us your answer, and we'll see who gets it right. And it's not horse racing, because that wasn't one of the 3 choices.
Horse racing is the sport of kings, I believe.
This is the king of sports. So, well, we usually wrap the show up a little wisdom from John Wooden. And so I wanted to talk about John Wooden. I got to cheat because we're on the 5th point on the 7-point creed. So just as a reminder, the first point was be true to yourself. So your integrity begins with you. The second one was help others.
Oh, you know, the first one I loved is morals and ethics don't ever take a holiday.
They don't ever take a
Yeah, I
holiday.
like that.
The third one is make each day your masterpiece. So put most of what you can do in each day.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness, yes. And last week it was drink deeply from good books. And then this is number 5, which is make friendship a fine art. And here's a little quote from John Wooden that will kind of take us to the end of the show. John Wooden says, in spite of all that doctors know and their studies never end, the best cure of all when spirits fall is a kind note from a friend. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. You know, we've been doing that. We've been sending out notes to people.
Yes, and I really appreciate the staff who've done that. We've had some members who were feeling a little down, feeling a little lonely, and one of our staff came up with the idea of, hey, let's go old school and write some notes.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that, and it was great to see the response. And I've been seeing letters coming back.
Yeah,
and putting in mailboxes
cool.
for the staff.
Yeah.
And we actually had a little idea. I'll throw it up there and share with everybody. Is I'd like to see the recovery center kind of, you know, I grew up, you know, we didn't have all this technology we have today with email and all that kind of stuff. And see, when we were kids, we used to have a pen pal. We used to have a pen pal a lot of times from where across country or across the ocean.
Yeah.
And we talked about trying to set up a pen pal relationship with maybe another peer center that maybe is on the other side of the country, or maybe even in a whole other country. So that's something that we're looking at doing, and maybe having our members getting involved with writing notes to the members of another organization, old school style, by sending a letter.
I think that's a great idea.
So I'm excited about it.
Did you come up with that? I like that.
Every once in a while, a good idea comes to me. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, very excited about that. A lot of great things going on here.
Next Wednesday is going to be an exciting show because we're going to be talking a lot about what's going to happen next Thursday.
Yes. And we're looking forward to getting some classes going outdoors and we'll roll with that. And, you know, next step after that is hopefully getting some people back into the building and moving past the COVID-19.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
Well, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. See you next week.